Welcome back. Today I'm going to answer 10 questions that I usually receive whenever I tell someone I was in the nightclub business and how I got into it. So let's start with those questions here. My first foray into music was as a student of piano. I started taking piano lessons when I was 6 years old and took lessons all the way up until I was 14. Had some instructors from the Eastman School of Music, had an instructor from the Krim Institute of Music in Rochester. I played the accompaniment for the church choirs that we had. Yeah, so I really started playing classical. My mom wanted me to become a classical pianist and was really kind of grooming me in that path. I really started hearing different styles of music, and I love classical music, but started playing in a stage band junior high school and played the keyboards, and that was mostly jazz-oriented, rocky kind of stuff. So that's how I really kind of got my musical upbringing. I took hours and hours of music theory classes. And so I really credit that with giving me the background and, helped me to become a DJ because it gave me a better understanding of music. The very first time that I DJ'd was, I think I was maybe 10 years old. We lived in the city of Rochester and had a garage behind our house. And basically when my dad went to work, we would take tinfoil and put that up over all the windows. I'd invite all the neighborhood friends of ours to come over and then tell them to bring their flashlights with them. And I had 2 close-in plays, believe it or not. I had received one as a gift and somebody else had one, so we set them up on a board, and I would have my stack of 45 records, which I received every Christmas. I got 45s from my mom, and I would play R&B records in, Jackson 5, Temptations, those Al Green, all that kind of stuff. And so that was where I would take one record, put it on, close down, and it would start playing. As soon as it was getting near the end of that, I would close down the other one and lift up this one. So I was going back and forth between 2 closing plays in my garage. So that was really the first time I DJ'd, and I got hooked. And I didn't really, later on we did parties with my cousin for our church, and he had a Bang & Olufsen turntable, which was a tracking turntable. This thing, I didn't even know how much it cost at the time. He had received it as a gift from his mom. And then we had some other beat up little turntable, but we put together a system and we would do our church functions. We did parties every night. And we actually did a party at my high school one year. And it was during, Flashlight from Parliament Funkadelic was big at that time. So I couldn't remember if I was a junior or a senior, but it was for the Black Student Union. And it was in one of the lunchrooms that we had at Charles Roth. And so yeah, that was probably my second real-time DJing in front of people that I didn't really know all the people. Why did I leave the Continental? That's an interesting question as well. And what I understand, it was a misunderstanding. There was a new club that was opening in Buffalo, which is featuring a brand new style of music. It was called the Jam Club. And Tony Bellani was managing the place, and I thought, well, this would be a kind of cool because I wanted to try some different stuff. I was at the Continental for 2 years already, and I wanted to try something different. So I went up and approached Bud Burke, the owner of the Continental, and I told him, I said, yeah, I'd like to go work over at the Jam Club as well. And he just said to me, well, you have a decision to make. And that's really how he left it. So I'm thinking, I have to decide between the two. I've got to decide if I want to work at the Continental or I want to work at the Jam Club. And I really wanted to work at the Jam Club. So I told him, I said, I want to work at the Jam Club. It was a while later that Bud Redding, the other DJ and promoter at the Continental, told me, he goes, well, no, Bud probably meant that you just have to decide, which nights you want to work over there. Which was, I'm totally clueless about it. I assumed that he just meant basically you have to choose between one or the other. I did not realize there was history between him and John Little, the owner of the Jam Club. But they had gone back and there might have been something going on between the two of them. I don't know. I'm never getting involved in that kind of stuff. So that was why I left. I thought I had to make a choice. I would have loved to have stayed at the Continental for years and years and years, but you know, as things happen, I've never really stayed at a place for more than 2 years, 3 years tops. And it was just a natural progression for me to try something different and new. And house music was coming into Buffalo at that time. I was doing my Clubhouse 9 parties as well. DJs like Alan Williams, Exotech was at the Jam Club. So yeah, being over at the Jam Club was definitely different, definitely new, but it really kick-started a lot of underground dance in terms of house music in Buffalo. And that can be, I mean, I met Count Basie once. My mom knew someone who played in his band. One time I was in New York City at one of the new music seminars I'd go to every year, and bumped into Flea at the bar, at the Marriott Marquis where we were staying, and had a great conversation with him there. My friends from Canada, Sue and Don, we went to one NMS one year, and we were actually at Mars, which was it was a 4-story nightclub in Manhattan, and I think it was in the Bowery, and each level had different styles of music. So we ended up, by the point in time we went through all the levels, we were hanging out on the roof, and my friend Sue points and goes, "Hey, there's Chris Shepherd." And I had never met Chris Shepherd before then. I'd heard him on the radio and loved what he was doing on CFNY. And we ended up hanging out with Chris Shepherd for a while that night and just hung out. You know, it was a lot of fun, and just an interesting personality Chris Shepherd was. So in terms of fame as well, any of the musicians that I met, because when I worked for Icon, I concerts through Eden Fest, which was a 4-day music festival outside of Toronto. My first wife and I went to that, and we had all access passes, VIP passes, backstage. You can get wherever you wanted. I could have walked right up to the front of the stage in the crowd and standing there right where the barrier is, untouched. There were thousands of people at this event. We go backstage, walking around, I'm like, "Hey, there's Robert Smith from The Cure. Hey, there's Perry Farrell." My first wife had no clue who Perry Farrell was. My buddy Tim was standing right next to him, ready to take a photograph with Perry Farrell. When I explained who Perry Farrell was to my first wife, Linda, she just perked right up and wanted to get a photograph with him, and so she muscled her way into this photograph, and my buddy Tim kind of got pushed off to the side. So, and I've got to find that photograph somewhere because it's fucking hilarious. But yeah, there's Linda with this big cheeky smile standing next to Perry Farrell, who she has no clue who he is. And I think there's a little sliver of my buddy Tim in the photograph where he kind of got forced out of the photograph. And I apologize, Tim. I'm sorry. I was hoping you weren't holding that against me all these years. Have I ever owned a nightclub? The answer to that is no. I've wanted to several times. When we reopened the old Icon building and had it was known as Rage. We had all it was a rave club, and we had rave DJs coming in there. A younger crowd, but it was really a lot of energy in that room, a lot of fun. One of the partners was pulling out, and I was scrambling. I was trying to find people who wanted to invest. And it was also a weird time for me because I knew I was going to end up getting married. And once I knew I was going to get married, I had a feeling that I was going to move out of Buffalo. So I really kind of ran into a brick wall. Couldn't find anyone who wanted to invest in that location. So that was probably my last best chance to have become a club owner or a part owner. So no, never owned a club. Have you ever played in a band? And have you ever opened for any big acts? Yes, I did. I had a recording project called A.B.X. And at one point in time, I had 2 young ladies from Buffalo, Sherry and Shelly. They were sisters. I wrote all the music on my keyboard and my drum machine, and they wrote the lyrics and the melodies to the song and came up with whatever choreography. And we ended up opening for CeCe Peniston at Network. I was the music director at Network at that time. CeCe was coming to play, and she had no opener, and they were asking for an opener. So we put a feeler out. Nobody was responding. So I was like, "Hey, I got a band. We can go up and be the opener." So they let me do it. And I will say it was probably one of the most nervous times because I was not accustomed to playing my instrument, my actual synthesizer, my beatbox, my drum machine, in front of people. I'd only done it a couple of times. It was mostly like a 4-track thing where I was at home in my bedroom, coming up with all these wild, crazy things. And there's a couple people out there who have A.B.X. Tapes, because I used to make tapes and hand them out to some people and say, hey, well, this is what I've written this, and it's all different kind of experimental stuff. And I was probably smoking a lot of weed at that point in time too, so that was very interesting fun. Where's the worst club you've ever worked? Well, I don't know for sure. I can't remember, and it wasn't even a club. It was a little place in Niagara Falls. I think it was down the street from the old Late Show up there. And they wanted to do an alternative night, and they wanted to start bringing in alternative people. And it was just a typical Niagara Falls bar. And if you've ever been to Niagara Falls, New York, you know that I considered Niagara Falls to be in a little bit of a time warp, because yeah, it was, and it probably still is. So I can't tell you the name of this little place. I think I DJ'd up there 3 times. 3 weeks I would drive up from Buffalo and DJ to maybe 7 people. So at that point in time, I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. And the club, the bar, whatever it was, they were not promoting it at all, really. And I wasn't really going to promote it because nobody was going to come from Buffalo to Niagara Falls, New York it just wasn't happening. So if I come up with the name of that place or remember exactly where it was, I'll let you. What is the best club you worked at? That's interesting because each of the clubs that I worked at had different aspects about them. So I found something in each of them. Technical equipment wise, the place was Network, which was downtown Buffalo, owned by Jim Kelly and partners from Pittsburgh who owned a club in Pittsburgh called Metropole. The DJ booth at Network was like being on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. We had a light panel, which was massive. My buddy Jimmy Gilo was my light tech for a while. Curtis, and I can't remember how to pronounce Curtis's last name, but you all know him as DJ Soma. He was there with us for a while working our light show. And we had Denon CD players, which was the first time I'd ever played on CDs, but all this equipment was top of the line. And we also had a video wall on the main stage, and video monitors throughout the club. That's where Jim Kelly used to broadcast his pregame show from, was on the stage at Network. So technical equipment wise, I will say Network was the epitome, the top of the line. Couldn't have asked for anything better. In terms of sound, they were not, I wouldn't say Network was not the best sound that I've worked on. The best sound system, well, Continental was, it was right there. You couldn't miss it, and it was equalized perfectly. It was loud, it was dark, but Icon also had a great sound system. Once we got these servo bass bins, I remember one time I was in there. Oh no, the servos did not come until Rage. But I remember one time I was in there, we were sound checking it, and I opened up that garage door, and I blasted that system up, and I swear over at, what's that parkway that's way over near the entryway? Put it this way, you could hear that sound for blocks. I'm sure downtown all heard it. So that was a great system. I really enjoyed that. I've been asked, will you DJ again in front of people? Well, you know what? It was funny because right before COVID hit is when I was gearing up. I was just getting back into the mindset, and not on a regular basis, but to come out and do special events. So I'm always open to it. Well, I do remember at one point in time, friends of mine from Buffalo, Dan and Kathy, they ended up moving to a little town on the coast, on the Gulf Coast called DUNEDIN. And it's outside of Tampa. Great little town. If you ever get a chance, go to DUNEDIN. They have a nightclub there called Blur. And if you go to that nightclub, definitely let them know you're from Buffalo, that you are familiar with me or know me. They'll treat you really well. Dan and Kathy, just salt of the earth people. The largest crowd there was not at their nightclub. It was actually for an event. They have these parades for Mardi Gras. And I'd been to Mardi Gras parade there before, years ago, before I ended up marrying my first wife. And I didn't realize how really big it was at that time because we were tripping on shrooms and smoking a bunch of weed and drinking. So they asked me to come up there and do this, a set. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So they hooked me up with a hotel and my food and everything. So I thought I was a star. And I get there, and I'm not joking. At one point in time, I looked out in the crowd and I asked somebody, I said, how many people are actually here? And he said, 50,000 people. So here I am, I'm breaking out Kraftwerk, Numbers by Kraftwerk on vinyl. And a bunch of these Tampa DJs who were very big into the breakbeat style, dudes come running up, they're like, where did you get that? I'm like, vinyl? You buy it in a store. They were all CD players at that time. All the DJs played CDs, so they looked at vinyl like, here comes Grandpa trying to, get something going. And I will tell you, though, I rocked it. And I had the best time, but that was the biggest crowd, 50,000 people. Just had a blast. All right, so that's it for the questions for now. I'm working on a couple other segments as well. I'm gonna probably end up doing a 2-part series on the Continental. I want to do some in-depth information about that place and what it was like to work at the Continental. After that, I went the different places I worked were the Adventure Club, which was a short-lived place on Elmwood Avenue, but a great spot. Don Keller and his partners had opened up that spot, and I mean that location was just like ideal. At one point in time, I remember there was a hearing in the city chambers or whatever your council is called, and they wanted to. It was something about the noise or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it's unfortunate that the Adventure Club was not a longer run. They didn't have a longer run. That was a great spot. But yeah, I've got multitudes of stories. I used to DJ at some places in Rochester, Club Zero. The guys that actually opened the original Icon, I used to go to Rochester and DJ for them at their place called Club Zero. There was another place that was right down on the river. It was built in an old train station. I really wish I could remember the name. They told it to me the other week, I forgot. But that was a fun place because it was strictly house music there. And the crowd was different from the crowd that I was accustomed to in Buffalo. So that was good. It actually kept me on my toes, and I learned new music that I had never heard before. So that was really great exposure for me. So yeah, I'm gonna do some summaries. I'll also talk about Slack Magazine. Slack Magazine was born out of Sign of the Times. And my longtime friend, Mark Wise, was the mastermind behind Sign of the Times. And we ended up morphing that into Slack Magazine. And it was a lifestyle magazine, music, lifestyle, entertainment, that kind of thing. Humorous. So I'll do a recap on Slack Magazine as well. And I'll talk about different projects that I worked on. So hopefully I'll see you next time. Stay safe, wear your masks, and peace.